everyone, good evening and welcome to yet another amazing class with us, Byju's. I'm Aishwarya and today's class is going to be on the chapter Microorganisms, Friend and Foe, where we are going to be covering the whole chapter at one go. And this is part of our mission midterms, wherein in these 45 days, we will ace and make sure that you ace your exams, right? Hello everyone, good evening. I can see Anahita, Gungun, Aditya, Bindu. Welcome everyone, welcome to the class. How are all of you today? Hi Mukaram, hi Harsimran. Welcome to the class. Yes? How are all of you feeling? How was your day today? Are you all excited about today's class? Yes? Hi Chinmay, welcome. All right everybody. Yes, thank you so much Gungun for letting me know that I am perfectly audible and visible, and I hope my screen is visible too. Yes, very quickly, if everything is all okay, give me a quick thumbs up in the chat. Yes? Hi Riya, hi Devapriya. Hello, Cook Food with us. Could you please tell us your name so that I know how to call you? It was pretty good. That is great. Yes? Hi Krishnendu. Hello, hi Joshita, hi Aditya. Yes, all of you are telling me that we are good to go. I am amazing, very excited to be discussing this whole chapter with all of you. Yes, so I am extremely very happy and excited and very pumped for today's class actually. Because earlier, as a part of our champion series, we did cover microorganisms, friend and foe, wherein we dealt with each of these concepts in great detail. So if any of you are new to the class and this is the first time you are watching this video, please go back and check that out, where we've learned about microorganisms in food industry, introduction to microbes, microorganisms, in the medical industry, harmful microbes. We've done all of these sessions in great detail. So I hope in case if you are new to this class, you please go back, check those videos out. Yes? Right. Not a problem. The excitement is all that I need, right? That's all that I need. I can see that around 28 students are here, right? Do we have around 28, 29 students? Yes, all right. So yes, today I hope that you tell all your friends to come and be a part of this class. Tell them, share the link, because today we are going to be doing a lot of important pointers. We will be discussing it, right? No problem. We are just getting started, Rakesh. Don't worry. Yes? Yes, Anant is here. Very good. So everyone, make sure you have a notebook and pen ready with you. You have a bottle of water, just like how I have my bottle of water, right? And we will be taking breaks. So one thing that I need you to remember is that today's class, what we will be doing is that we'll cover a certain set of concepts. And if any of you have any doubts, please don't worry. There will be a doubt board section where I will be discussing the doubts. Yes. So what I want you to do is to make sure that you are paying attention. And in case if you don't have a notebook and pen and you don't want to write, you can even keep your textbook open. Keep your NCERT open with you. Make sure that you have, a pencil and you're marking these important pointers. Yes. All right. My name is Aishwarya, and without wasting any more time, we're going to get started. So, of course, in the beginning of the class, you saw this wonderful video on ANTHE, right? Which is nothing but Aakash National Talent Hunt Exam. So, if again you are new to this class, please do go register. The registration is absolutely free. Link is available in the description box. And of course, you know that with the help of this particular ANTHE, you will be exposed to competitive exams, how they work, how the paper is going to be, right? We will be giving it for few students, they stand a chance to win up to 100% scholarship. Of course, cash rewards, mock tests which will be provided, and of course, the most coveted NASA trip. Yes, so please make sure that you all have got yourself registered. We will be starting the ANTHE preparations real soon. And you know that this particular session, that is a one-shot session, is part of our 45-day plan for mission midterms, where along with one-shot marathons, we'll give you notes, PDFs, revisions, we'll be giving you complete quizzes, exam-focused important questions, and of course, we will be having doubt-solving sessions. Now again, for those of you who are new, please make sure that a lot of you, right, you can send in your doubts in the chat. Yes, so that, you can send in your doubts in the Google form link that is there in the description box, and we'll be having a separate standalone session where we will be clearing all of your doubts. Now, for all this to happen, you need to stay subscribed to our channel. Yes, at all times, please stay subscribed because we're a small family of now what, 14,000 odd subscribers, and we need to hit 25,000 real soon. And this will not happen without your help. So please make sure that you are spreading the word, right? Yes, Ria is new. So Ria, this will definitely be helpful for you. And of course, in great demand, the Byju's mini learning program is back, but with a slight twist. Now we have something known as the YT first code, not the YT free, but the YT first code, where the first 1,000 users who will use this code can avail it for free, right? First 1,000. So some of you used to come up and you used to tell me that, you know, ma'am, it's showing 399. So you need to be first among those 1,000 students, right? So don't forget to be that and go real soon, because you know that as a part of the mini learning program, you will get the 2-teacher advantage. It's, you know, spread across multiple cities, and you will have access to some amazing Byju's, you know, content that will be there, right? So please do register. Now, of course, before I get started with the class, one last reminder that is going to be there. And of course, if you were part of the crop production one-shot sessions, you all will know that we are launching the worksheet series. And here we will be providing you the worksheet for microorganisms. Link is there in the description. So after today's class, go and solve these worksheets. And we will be giving you the next worksheet that is there for crop production, worksheet 2. That will be posted on the Telegram channel. So if you're not part of the Telegram channel, please make sure that you join. Again, link is in the description box. No problem. I told you that worksheet is open whenever you want to use it. It's not something where, you know, after 10 days, I'm going to close the worksheet. No, the worksheet is extremely there just for your practice, right? So whenever you're studying the chapter, attempt the worksheet because it will help you with your problem solving, right? How to answer. There is no link in the description, Aditya. Don't worry. After this class, I will tell the team they will be adding it. Don't worry, okay? And it will be pinned to the comment section also. So just stay tuned for that. Yes? No problem, Bhavya. No problem. If it is not there, it will be there after this class. So don't worry about it, okay? Link will be tagged in the description. Link will be there in the comment section pinned after the class. Yes? No problem, guys? Okay. Now that was about good 3-4 minutes of important information that we discussed. Before I get started, quick show of thumbs up to tell me how excited all of you are. Yes? Quick show of hands, everyone, because we're going to get started. Yes? All right. Amazing, everybody. Amazing. Hello, Deepika. Hello, Karthik. Yes. Was given after the session. Yes. So this worksheet will also come after the session. Don't worry. All right, everybody. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to get started. So the link will come after the class. Yes, don't worry about it. All right. So now, of course, this chapter, as we know, talks about the concept of microorganisms, right? And we know that microorganisms are nothing but tiny organisms that are not visible to the naked eyes, which is why we use the term micro. Now we know that because they are not visible to the naked eye, we require a certain instrument to observe it. And this instrument is what we call as a microscope that will help us zoom and focus closely into it so that we can observe them clearly. Now, of course, microorganisms are nothing but tiny living organisms, right? So along with animals and plants, we also find these microbes, just that is not something that we see with our naked eye. Yes? Now, of course, when we talk about where these microorganisms are present, we see that microbes are everywhere, right? We find them in the air, we find them in water, we find them in soil, and we also find microbes in some extreme conditions. Now, what do I mean by extreme conditions? Now, we see that in hot springs where the temperature is really hot, right? Or sometimes in the snowy mountains where it is very cold, or in lakes, right? Extremely salty water, we see that there are microbes that have the ability to survive, which is why we say that microbes are found everywhere, or they are cosmopolitan. Cosmopolitan sounds like a very fancy word, but it's nothing but that it's found everywhere. Its distribution is everywhere, right? Now, of course, this is the definition of microbe. So I hope I'm going to go back. I hope that all of you have made a note of this. This right here is the definition of microbes, right? You can call them as microscopic organisms or tiny organisms. Yes? So I hope you've made a note of this definition and you are aware about where we find these microorganisms. Now, when we talk about the classification of microbes, right? So when we talk about the classification of microbes, we know that broadly there are 4 major groups. Yes? So here we see that there is bacteria, fungi, protozoa and algae. Now when we talk about bacteria, we know that they are unicellular organisms and we also find them everywhere. And we know that they come in different shapes. So we know that there are some rod-shaped bacteria which we call as bacilli. We have some spherical-shaped bacteria known as cocci. We have some comma-shaped bacteria which is known as vibrio. And some spiral-shaped structures known as spirilla. Then of course we also learnt about fungi. And we know that fungi are often found growing on dead and decaying matter. And here are some examples such as yeast and mushroom. Then of course we have protozoa wherein we have some examples such as amoeba and paramecium, right? So here it's important that you make a note of it, right? These examples of each of it, example of bacteria or example of fungi, it's very important that you are making a note of it. Then of course we have algae as well, which are primarily aquatic in nature. We find them in water, right? So Chlamydomonas, giant kelp are all some examples of algae. Now there is another category, right? And that is nothing but viruses. Now viruses are often, we call them as microscopic because, of course we cannot see them with our naked eyes. But the thing is, viruses are not often referred to as living organisms because we see that they are somewhere between living and non-living. Now the reason being is that outside the body, right? So we see that outside the body, or when we find it maybe in and around us, we see that it will not be able to survive. It will not show the characteristics. It will not be able to reproduce. It will not, be able to obtain food. It will just be inert. It will just be there, right? But what happens is that when it enters into the host body, right, or the host cell, it will take over the host cell and it will start to make more and more of itself. So we see that it is dependent on the host organism to survive, which is why we often say that viruses are microscopic, but we will not, put it under the umbrella term of microorganisms because microorganisms are living, right? So it is very important that you understand the difference between why most often we don't categorize viruses in this category. Yes, because they will replicate or they will make more of themselves inside the host body. Now, of course, we know that microorganisms most often than not are considered to be very bad for us, right? Oh, these microbes are really bad. They're always harmful. They are causing diseases, right? But we also know that there are some microbes which are beneficial or they are helpful to us, which is why we see that there is always a balance between the good microbes and the harmful microbes that are there. So of course, before I go ahead in talking about the beneficial microbes, can you please very quickly, I don't have the doubt board with me, but I'm also able to see some questions coming in the chat. So very quickly, can you send in your questions? Any doubts so far? Why do we call them as microorganisms? Simply because we cannot see them with the naked eye, right? They are microscopic, which is why, or we need a microscope for the same, which is why microorganisms. Yes. I will be sending the PDF. Don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry. Why virus is not in the group? Like I told you, virus is not considered to be a living organism. Now, for anything to be considered as a living organism, it needs to be made up of cells, right? We also see that it should be able to grow by itself. It needs to, reproduce, make more of itself. Yes? So in this case, if you see here, we often refer it to as, we often say that it's not exactly a living organism. I got a very interesting question. Why are we saying, how can we call mushroom as a microscopic organism? Very good, very good. So now when we talk about mushrooms, right? So with fungi, there is this thing actually. Now fungi are this, weird category of organisms, okay? Because we see that a lot of them are microscopic, yes? While a lot of them are macroscopic. So when I gave you the example of fungi, mushroom is an example of fungi. But mushroom is not an example of a microscopic fungi. Yes, but it is an example of a macroscopic. Macro means large, which means you can see them with your naked eye. Right? So which is why, of course, in this case as a microorganism, you cannot consider it. But yeast and rhizopus are good examples. Are we clear with this, everybody? Yes? Yeast also we can see. So commercial yeast is slightly different from, the kind of yeast structure that we are talking about, right? Yes, Spirogyra, it is an example. It is an example of algae. Yes, what is yeast? Yeast is an example of fungi. It's a kind of fungi. We're going to learn more about yeast. Don't worry. Type of bacteria. So I told you for type of bacteria, Krishnendu, we've done a detailed session, right, on what are the different types of bacteria based on structure. But broadly, and you can go back and check it out also. You just need to type types of bacteria and, put my name and you'll be able to get it. But the thing here is that broadly we see that bacteria can be categorized based on their shape, right? So some we see are, rod shape, which we call as bacillus. Some are spherical shape, which we call as cocci, right? And then of course we have Vibrio and Spirula as well. What is an example of Spirula bacteria? Leptospira is an example. Yes? All right, not through diffusion. They do not reproduce through diffusion. They reproduce through something known as fragmentation. Yes? All right, are we clear, everybody, so far? Very quickly, give me a show of hands. Yes, don't worry, don't worry. No problem, everyone. I want you to give me a quick show of hands to know that we are good to go. Crystal clear, so that we can go ahead with the next set of concepts, right? Okay, everybody. So now we have looked at bacteria. We've looked at we've looked at microorganisms, classification of these microorganisms, right? And we've also learned about how they may be beneficial or they may be harmful, right? Now let's look at some of the beneficial microbes that are there. Now broadly, if we talk about how beneficial these microorganisms are, we can categorize them into three big industries, right? So we see that it can be categorized in food industry, medical industry, in waste management, or we can say in the environment. Yes? So first up, let us look at the food industry. Now, when we talk about food industry, we know that one of the important functions of some beneficial microbes that are there is with the formation of curd, right? Now, we know that curd is something that we get from the milk. Yes, and we know that to a bowl of milk, if we add some amount of curd and we keep it overnight, we see that the next day we see that curd is formed. So what exactly is happening here? Now we see that curd consists of a certain kind of bacteria known as lactobacillus. This term is very, very important. Please make a star mark in your textbook or write it down, right? So lactobacillus is what is responsible for the conversion of milk to curd. Now in milk, we see that there is something known as lactose, right? So this is a little extra information. So guys, don't get worried that you may not be finding it. It's just that you need to know the science behind it, which is why I am telling you, right? So we see that milk consists of something known as lactose. And what happens is that this lactobacillus that is there, it will act on this lactose and it will convert it to something known as lactic acid. And when this lactic acid is formed, this lactic acid will now act on the proteins which are present in the milk. And they will undergo some structural changes and a lot of changes will happen chemically, which is why we see that the, milk and curd are very different. Curd has a thicker consistency and it looks a little more stiff when compared to milk, right? Milk is a little more flowy. Yes, the curd that you add to the milk here is what you call as an inoculum. So inoculum is nothing but a substance wherein we see, it's nothing but a substance which consists of some microbes that we add. Why is it written SP, lactobacillus species, right? So we know that when we say lactobacillus, it's not just one kind of lactobacillus. We see that there will be many various species of the same. Yes? So this is what happens with curd formation and these steps are very, very important. Harshit, just keep your doubts. We'll have a doubt board section. You can ask me then. Write your doubts down and keep it, okay? So this is the first thing that is there. That is in the formation of curd and I hope we are clear with this. Now next, of course, we know that there is yeast, and yeast here helps with the process of fermentation. Now we know that fermentation is nothing but a process. Now you might find some very fancy words here. We see that fermentation is the process wherein sugars are broken down anaerobically by microorganisms. Now, if you see right behind me, we have a dough of bread, right? And we see something very observant, something very interesting happening here, where we see that the bread level or the volume is rising. Now we see that in bread making and even in the formation of wine and commercial purposes, we tend to use yeast here as a microbe, right? So yeast is what we will be adding to all of it. Now what is so special about yeast? Now what we observe is that yeast that is there. So let me make some space so that you can see better. Now what this yeast will do is that in anaerobic conditions. Now what do we mean by anaerobic conditions? When there is with very little oxygen, yes? So that means there's not a lot of oxygen available and very little oxygen that is available. This yeast will act on the sugar and it will break it down or convert it to alcohol, and it will give out carbon dioxide as a byproduct. Right? And we see that as a result of this breakdown of sugar into alcohol, we also see that energy gets released. Now this is what something happens naturally in the yeast. Okay, so we're talking about a natural process that is taking place. Now what happens is that when the yeast is reproduced, so when the yeast is breaking the sugar down, it needs the energy for growth, for development. So they'll keep increasing in number. And as a result, more and more carbon dioxide is given out. And now the carbon dioxide, being a gas, will try to escape the dough, right? So if this is the dough that is there, right, it will try to escape. And as a result, we see that the volume will become bigger. And which is why we see that in breads especially, we see here that risening of dough will take place. Yes? So this is what we understand by risening of dough and yeast used in bread. Now, this is also fermentation, right? Sugar is getting broken down and carbon dioxide is given out. Now, we also see here that in the alcohol formation, right, wherein we produce wine, we see that the same process is applied wherein fermentation is used, wherein we see that sugar, natural sugars that we find in pineapple, grapes, barley, they're all broken down in order to produce alcohol, right? So, it's important that you understand what is fermentation. So this is what we mean by it. So to define fermentation, it is nothing but the conversion of sugar into alcohol. Yes, Harshit, you can ask me your doubts, and as a matter of fact, all of you can ask me your doubts. So far, are we clear with it? Yes? Are we clear? Anybody has any doubts with this concept? Do you want me to explain it once again? Any of you? We also say alcoholic fermentation. Yes, we do when alcohol is given out as a byproduct, right? Yes, please tell me, Harshit, no problem. Formation of curd is also fermentation. We call that as lactic acid fermentation. Yes, we do. And for those of you who may be seeing this video for the first time, please go back and watch the video, right, wherein we have spoken about the types of fermentation as well. You can go back and check beneficial microbes in the food industry. How is the dough increasing its size? Okay, I will tell you. So let's assume that we are making, right? So we have a bowl, right? Harshit, I'm waiting for your doubt also, okay? So we have a bowl and we have added our flour, right? So we are making flour. We have put some sugar maybe, right? Some salt, whatever we need to, maybe make, whatever we need to make a dough basically. So we have made a dough here, right? And we have added our yeast to this as well. Now what happens is that we will cover this, okay? We will cover it with a cloth, so that there's not a lot of oxygen that is coming in contact. And I'm sure that if you watched a lot of cookery shows, you would see how they will cover the whole thing and keep it, right? So what happens here is that inside this, the yeast will start to act on the sugar and it will start to break it down. Yes, and as it starts to break it down, we see that alcohol gets produced, right? And carbon dioxide is released. Now this carbon dioxide that is released will try to escape because it's a gas, no? So it will escape. Yes. So what will happen is it will now, because it is escaping, the dough will start to become bigger and bigger because it wants to go out. As a result, we see that the volume will increase, right? So I hope that this is clear. Can you say the definition of yeast? Yeast is a microorganism, so unicellular microorganism that is there, which has the ability or which is used in commercial purposes, right? All right. So again, for those of you who are asking me the definition of yeast, I would say that when we do the cell chapter, no, it gets very simple because I've not covered cell. I'm giving you like a half definition, I feel, and I feel very bad about it as well. Couldn't understand inoculum. Don't worry. Inoculum that is there. No, so I'm going to use another color maybe. Inoculum is nothing but any substance which consists of microorganisms. And if you put it in another place where the microorganisms can grow, it will help in that. So basically you can think about it like how curd has microbes in it, but milk does not. And when you add a little bit of curd into milk, we see that, you know, these microbes will start to grow and increase in number. So inoculum is any substance which consists of microbes, right? So are we clear with this point? Yeast is the microbe that helps in fermentation. Yes, you can, Harsimran. Yes, that works very well. Very good. Are we clear, everybody? Any more doubts? Any questions that you have so far? Because I'm writing it on the doubt board so that when you get the PDF, you will have all this written as well, right? Yes. I had Harshit as well. I can't see Harshit's question now. Harshit, any doubts so far? Okay, all right. I can see a lot of thumbs ups coming my way. So can we go ahead? Can we move on to the next bit of it? Yes, all right. I can see that the chat is a little slow right now. Can we just quickly refresh it once? All right. Okay, everybody, let's get started, right? So we're going to get started with the next set of questions, the next concept, right? So we looked at the food industry, we learned about confectionery. So three things you should remember. One is bread making, curd formation, and of course, alcohol formation, right? And going back, one more thing that I forgot to add was we know that Louis Pasteur had a very important role to play, right? So this is something that you also need to remember. Now moving on to the medical industry, right? Now in the field of medicine, microorganisms have a very big role to play, right? Because when we talk about the medical industry, when we say medical industry and microbes, first thing that comes to our mind is disease, right? They are going to cause diseases, they are going to harm people. But what we don't realize is that in the medical industry, they are extremely beneficial. And the first thing, of course, is that of antibiotics, right? So here, as you can see, when we talk about antibiotics, anti means against, right? And biotics or bios here means life, right? So antibiotics are nothing but chemical substances that are obtained from microorganisms that can either kill or inhibit the growth of other microbes. Very, very important, everybody. Please write this definition down. So you can say that antibiotics are chemical substances, or I'm sure in the NCERT they would have also mentioned that they are medicines, which is okay, it's correct only. So they're nothing but chemical substances that are obtained from other microbes that help in killing or getting rid of the disease-causing microbes that are there. So when we say these other microbes, they are the disease-causing ones, right? And we know that the first antibiotic was discovered by who? Can you quickly tell me in the chat? Who discovered antibiotics? Who accidentally discovered? So in the year 1929, we had a very important breakthrough discovery that took place. Yes, can you all tell me? Very good, Alexander Fleming, right? So Alexander Fleming was actually culturing some bacteria in the lab, and what he observed was due to some contamination, there was another fungi that was growing, right? And this fungi that was growing was Penicillium notatum. Yes? So this is what we mean. This is a fungi that was growing, and it was secreting a chemical substance that was there, which was inhibiting the growth of the bacteria. And eventually we saw that the antibiotic that we obtained here was penicillin. So very important pointers that I am writing on the screen, right? Now, of course, we know that antibiotics are commonly obtained from certain bacteria and fungi. And we see that these are some examples. Like apart from penicillin, we have streptomycin, tetracycline, and erythromycin. Now, another thing to remember is that antibiotics are not just for human beings. but rather antibiotics can be used for the animals and plants as well. Now for plants, what they do is they dissolve these antibiotics in water and they will spray on the plant so that there are no diseases that are found on plants, right? And similarly for animals, especially domesticated animals and livestock that is there, they will mix it with the food so that they will eat it, so that again they don't fall sick. So antibiotics are not restricted to humans but can be used for animals as well as even the plants, right? Now, one more very important thing when we talk about antibiotics here is that antibiotics are ineffective. So we see that they are ineffective against viruses, right? Because we know that viruses they start to grow, they make more of themselves only once after they enter into the body. And what happens is that by the time that the viruses start to grow and we start to show signs, it becomes a little too late, which is why the best defense against the virus is our own body, right? And that's why for viral diseases we often just take medicines for the cold, or we take medicines for the other symptoms that are there, so that we make our body strong enough to fight the virus. Yes, so we see that antibiotics are not very useful against the viral diseases or the viral pathogens that are there. And of course, we know that there are certain precautions that we must take, right? So I'm going to write this in blue. We must take certain precautions while we consume antibiotics. So first and foremost, we see that it is important that we take antibiotics only under the prescription of a medical expert or a doctor, right? We must not eat antibiotics without taking consultation. It's very, very bad, right? And of course, another thing is to complete the course of the antibiotics. So after we go to the doctor and the doctor tells us, okay, you eat this, one in the morning, one in the night, and to eat this for 5 days. And in 3 days you feel better. Doesn't mean that in 3 days you stop, right? The reason why we always tell that you must complete the course of antibiotics is because of 2 reasons. One is, if you don't complete it, if you say stop, eating it much early. So say you were supposed to eat it for 5 days, but you decided that in 3 days I'm feeling really good, so I don't want to eat for the other 2 days. What happens is that the bacteria, right, or the disease causing pathogen that is there, it is very smart. It will have the ability to develop resistance. So whatever chemical is attacking it, right, this bacteria or this disease pathogen is really, really smart. It has the ability. I'm not saying it will do it, but it has the ability to evolve or mutate itself such that it will be resistant, right? So it will develop resistance against the antibiotic, which is why it is important to complete the course. But now at the same time, if you tell, okay ma'am, if these pathogens are like this, I will eat it for 7 days, 2 extra days just to be sure. Now that is also bad. Because what happens is that our body is also host to a lot of good microbes, right? We know that in the digestive tract there are a lot of good microbes. And if we take in more than necessary, it will start to affect the healthy microbes as well. Which is why it is important that we take care of these precautions. And everyone, let me tell you, for your exam, precautions will come. So when you are writing, there's a small box where precautions are there. So make a star mark next to it. It's extremely important. They may twist and give it to you, but don't worry, okay? It's very simple and direct. Now with this, we've had a look at antibiotics and we're going to quickly look at vaccines. Now vaccines are nothing but biological preparation. What do I mean by biological preparation? It's nothing but they are made up of dead or weakened microbes, right? So we see that they are made up of dead and weakened microbes that has the ability to stimulate an immune response. Nothing but it generates a defense response against that particular pathogen. So let me tell you, this is a very interesting thing that we've come up with. Now vaccines, they are nothing but they are small preparation, which means it will be like a small liquid. And we see that inside this liquid, we will find dead and weakened pathogens. Now if they are dead and weakened, no, and they come inside our body, they will not be able to cause a disease. That is precisely why we say dead and weakened. And once they enter into our body, we see that our body's defense system that is there will get activated. Right? And here we see that there are some Y-shaped proteins known as antibodies. All of you don't get confused with I can see Ayush is already telling me I get confused with antibiotics and antibodies. Don't worry everyone, this is a very simple way to remember. Antibody, body means it's produced inside our body. Antibiotics, biotic means, bio means life, which means in some other organism it is getting produced. Simple way to remember this, right? So antibodies here are these Y-shaped proteins which will get produced, and we see that it has the ability. So there are various cells that are there inside our body. Some of them are damn smart. They have the ability to remember how this pathogen will look like, how it will attack us. It will have this army of antibodies there which are there, right? So basically what happens is that when you have all of this, yes, we see that this helps in strengthening our immunity or strengthening our resistance to fight against diseases, right? And we see that we have, of course, some examples such as we have the BCG vaccine, polio vaccine, tetanus vaccine, and so on. What is the difference between vaccine and antibiotics? Okay, so let me tell you, antibiotics are chemical substances wherein these chemicals will directly kill the pathogen. So these chemicals are the ones which will go and get rid of the pathogen. Vaccines, what they will do is they're introducing, dead and weakened microbes, and it will in turn make our body do all the work. Right? So when dead and weakened microbes enter into the body, it will make our body do the work, produce the necessary cells, and it will go and it will get rid of the pathogen, right? Or the whatever disease causing pathogen that is there. So are we clear with what is antibiotic, what is antibody, and what is vaccine? Yes, are we clear with these three terms? I have no confusion. That is the best when I see that. Till medicine ends. So Krishnendu, we just discussed, right? We just discussed as to why we must take those precautions. So the very reason that we must have to take precautions while, we have use antibiotics is exactly why we must take the medicines till the end. Yes? Yes, everyone, are we clear? You can take a minute to drink some water, refresh yourself. We are like almost 40 minutes into the class, right? So drink some water. Very good, everybody. Very good. I will do that. I'll write the definition on the screen. Yes, please have a water break, everybody. And in the meanwhile, for Akita, I will write the definition of antibodies on the screen, okay? And in case if you're not writing it down, you will get the session PDF, so don't worry about that. So, antibodies are Y-shaped proteins produced by our body in response to pathogens, right? So that is the role of it. It's a very simple one. Simple definition, make a note of it, star mark it in your book. Yes? All right, everyone, all right. We have around 15 to 20 more minutes and then we'll wind up the chapter, okay? Because next Ankita ma'am also has a class, so she'll be waiting outside. Okay, everybody, we'll get started with the next part very quickly. The next remaining part of the chapter is actually very simple, not a problem at all. Yes, all right. Carefully, Krishnendu, carefully. No hurry in all this, right? Okay, moving on to the next one, we are now going to quickly look at microbes and how they are used in waste management, or we can say how they are used in the environment, right? So now we know that there are some microbes which we find in soil, right? And we know we call them as soil microbes. And we see that some of these soil microbes have the ability to act on dead and decaying matter, and they will decompose the organic waste. Now, what do I mean by they will decompose, right? It means that they will break it down. So, they will break the complex substances that are there into simple soluble forms, right? So, that is what we mean by the process of decomposition. Yes? And now we also know that there are some soil microbes which will improve the soil fertility. So we know that in the root nodules of leguminous plants, we see that there is this certain bacterium that is there, which is known as rhizobium, which has the ability to convert atmospheric nitrogen, right? So it has the ability to convert atmospheric nitrogen into usable or soluble forms. And we call this as the process of nitrogen fixation, and such an organism as a biological nitrogen fixer. Now we see here that Rhizobium is found in a symbiotic association with the leguminous plants, but some of them are free living also, which means that we find them in the soil. So we have nostoc and anabaena as well, which have the ability, and we call all of them as biological nitrogen fixers. Yes? All right. So are we clear with this? Yes, we are going to discuss nitrogen cycle in this session. Don't worry. Antibiotics are medicines and antibodies are friendly antibodies, not friendly army microorganisms, Anwar, but I would say that they are friendly army of proteins inside our body. Yes, blue-green algae, cyanobacteria, that can also be an example. Yes, you can write that. Okay, everybody, then we'll go to the next part that is there very quickly, that is on the harmful microbes, right? So when we talk about harmful microbes, we need to know about the disease or the pathogens that are there. But of course, before I go with pathogens, we must first understand what do we mean by disease, right? So disease here is nothing but disturbed ease. Yes, wherein we see that there is a deviation from the normal working of the body. Now we see that microorganisms that cause these diseases are known as pathogens, or we call them as disease causing microbes, right? So this is very, very important to understand. Now we see that diseases can be broadly classified into two, as communicable diseases and as non-communicable disease. Now, what do we mean by communicable diseases? Now, communicable diseases are those diseases which can be spread from whom? From an individual who is infected to a healthy individual. And we see that most diseases that are caused by pathogens are communicable diseases. So some examples are typhoid, tuberculosis, right? So I'm going to write all of that down and you can also make a note. So typhoid, tuberculosis are all examples of communicable diseases. While we see that there are some diseases which are non-communicable, which means they cannot be spread from an infected individual, right, to a healthy individual. Which means that if one person gets sick, right, it will not spread. So examples such as deficiency diseases, maybe heart-related risks that are there, they are all considered to be non-communicable because we see here that it happens due to certain person's lifestyle, right? But it is important to understand. Yes, tetanus is a bacteria, but it is non-communicable. Very good. Because we see that most often only when you come in direct contact with where the pathogen is, you will be able to get it. But it will not go from infected to healthy person. Very good, Harsimran, very good. Now, of course, when we talk about communicable diseases, we see that there are various modes of transmission, which means that they can spread through various ways. Some can spread through air or air droplets, right? So sometimes when we cough or sneeze without covering our mouth, we so spread the pathogen in that manner. Sometimes through contaminated water, sometimes through some vectors, right? So here is a very important term that has come into the picture, that is vectors or carriers. Now vectors or carriers, very important definition, please make a star mark, are nothing but they are insects or animals that carry the pathogen from where to where? From an infected individual to a healthy individual, right? So this is what we mean by carriers. What is droplet infection? Droplet is when you cough or sneeze, right? Those mucus droplets or saliva droplets that are there, we see that when it goes out, we see that through those drops, inside those drops, you will find pathogens. And if an individual comes in contact with it, then we see that they fall sick. This is what we mean by droplet infection. So I hope we are clear with it. And then last but not the least, we have direct contact, right? So when you come in direct contact with a surface, so it could be any non-living surface, or sometimes when you come in skin to skin contact. So sometimes in the case of chicken pox and everything, if you come in contact with the blisters, right? Or if you come in contact with the pustules, we see that there can be transfer. So it is important to understand the difference between direct contact. It could be skin to skin, or it could be with a, normal, through non-living surfaces as well. So here are some quick examples, right? So here we see that typhoid, cholera and tuberculosis are all bacterial diseases, which means they are all caused by bacteria. We see that hepatitis, chickenpox, polio are all examples of viral diseases, and we have malaria and dengue. Now these are vector-borne diseases. Now here if you see, malaria is caused by protozoa while dengue is caused by a virus. And we know that the vector involved, these are terms we need to remember. The vector that is responsible here is the Anopheles, and that to the female Anopheles mosquito in the case of malaria, right? And we know that the pathogen is nothing but Plasmodium. While on the other hand, when we talk about dengue, we know that the female Aedes mosquito is what is responsible for the transfer of the dengue virus, right? So these are two things you must remember. Now, apart from this, we also know that there are diseases in animals. So we have anthrax, which is caused, and we often see it in cattle, that is caused by a bacteria, that is Bacillus anthracis. Foot and mouth disease, which is caused by a virus. We don't need to give specific names. So Prakriti, I can give it to you, right? I can maybe write it down and give it to you post class. But the thing is, in NCERT, CBSE 8 especially, you don't need to know the terms, which is why I have omitted it. But I can always, maybe write it down and send it to you on Telegram, right? So in the Telegram PDF, you will have the names. Do we need to draw the table? Not really. You don't need to draw the table, right? But what you need to do is to know, is tuberculosis seen in humans? Right? Anthrax, do you find it in humans or do you find it primarily in animals, right? You need to know that. You need to know which is a human disease, which is a plant disease, which is an animal disease. These are three things that you need to know. And of course, if you see here, when we talk about, the diseases in plants, right? We have citrus canker, rust of wheat and yellow vein mosaic of Bindi. And we see that citrus canker is caused by, bacteria that affects the citrus plants. Rust of wheat is caused by Puccinia, which is a fungi that is there, and it causes like a rust-like thing on the surface, right? And of course, we have yellow vein mosaic of Bindi, which is caused by a virus. Yes. Okay, no problem, Prakriti. In the PDF, I will write it and give it to you, right? So this is very oriented towards NCERT, which is why you may not be finding it. But for the PDF, I will add it. And for some of you, it might be extra information. So if you don't want that, you can just omit that bit. Don't worry about it. So any doubts, guys, so far? Any doubts that you have, please let me know. We are at the doubt board section. We have the last one portion on food preservation and nitrogen cycle, and we will be writing up. We'll be winding up. Yes, please tell me, guys, any doubts so far? If everything is good to go, give me a thumbs up in the chat, right? So that I know that we are good to go. No doubts, no doubts. Brilliant. Disease part is very simple, but yet very interesting as well. Do we need to make notes on diseases? Notes on diseases, you can make brief notes, right? Yes. Is vaccine taken after we get disease? So normally, I understand where this question is coming from. Now the thing is, for a pathogen, so for example, let's take something like tuberculosis, right? So BCG is vaccine that is there, or even the polio vaccine is given to everybody at a very young age, right? And the reason being is that over time we've tried and tested and we know it is extremely effective, which is why for young children itself, we tend to start vaccinating them right from the beginning. But of course, I do understand that currently, especially with the COVID cases and with the pandemic, there were times when some people got infected, then they recovered and then they took the vaccine. Now, in such cases, what happens is that on an ideal scenario, you make the vaccine, then you spread the immunity. But in such cases, what happens is that vaccines can be given if the person is, infected or post that as well. So it's important that you understand that. Can you explain about female malaria female? Oh, okay. All right. So now, of course, we know that there is an infected individual, right? And there is a healthy individual. Yes. Now we see that female Anopheles mosquito that is there. So this is a female Anopheles mosquito. When this female Anopheles mosquito will go and bite this infected individual, this mosquito will suck the blood along with the pathogen. And then when it will buzz and it will go and bite a healthy individual, as it's going to bite it, It will also transmit the plasmodium or the pathogen that is there. So pathogen here is plasmodium. And we see that in the meanwhile that is sitting, when it is inside the body of the mosquito, right, it will actually not harm the mosquito. It will not infect the mosquito per se. So it's important that here it is acting only as a carrier, right? Yes, please something. I will post a trick very soon. I'll also come up with a trick and I'll definitely post it. Do I need to draw that table? No. Don't worry, you don't need to draw. Which microbes are mainly used? Can we just scroll up a little bit? Okay guys, which microbes are mainly used in antibiotics? So there's a wide range of it, right? So various bacteria are used. Of course, the simple one, Harsimran, that you can remember is Penicillium notatum, right? But there are various ways in which microorganisms are being used. It's a little beyond your scope right now, which is why I'm not going into the details of it, right? Yes. Can we scroll down now? Okay, everybody. All right. So now let's move on to the next part, right? I will tell you. We'll have a YouTube short released on this, Akita, so that it gets easier, right? So we'll do that. Okay, everyone. So since there is a little short of time and Ankita ma'am is waiting for her class in 9th and 10th channel, I'm going to wind up in another 5 minutes, right? All right. Okay, fungi or bacteria? Both bacteria and fungi are used. Okay, all right. We use both bacteria and fungi that are there. Okay, everybody. So last bit of it. So now next one, of course, what we learned about was on food spoilage and food preservation, right? And we know that food spoilage is when certain microorganisms will start to grow on the food, thereby making it, unusable or undesirable, where it is no longer edible. And in order to prevent food spoilage from, happening, we use food preservation techniques. So food preservation techniques are nothing but those techniques which are used to prevent food spoilage. And of course, here we have the various techniques that are there. We have the chemical method where we add, some chemicals like sodium metabisulfite and so on, right? We use salt and sugar in some cases. So salt we normally add it to meat. We use, we also use salt solution for pickling as well. And we see that when you add salt or sugar, we see that it drains out all the moisture from the microbes and it will kill it, right? And we also see that oil and vinegar is also used for pickling, wherein we see that oil is added on the top layer of the pickle, right? On the top thin layer, we will find oil. That's because oil will act as a barrier and it will prevent any exposure to the air, right? And that's why oil is extremely important. Then we have hot and cold treatment, which is nothing but pasteurization. Now, pasteurization, that is there. Oops, let me write it fast. Pasteurization, I think the spelling is wrong, but please bear with me, right? So pasteurization that is there is a technique wherein we use for sterilizing or to keep the milk safe from microorganisms. Yes, very good, Prakriti. So we see that we heat the milk to a very high temperature, about 70, 75, and we cool it immediately, right? And this immediate heating and cooling will actually help in getting rid of the microbes. And of course, proper storing and packaging techniques will also help in improving the shelf life of these, the food products that are there. Yes? All right. What is put on olive? So olive most likely will be put again. So mainly when you preserve all of this, right, you have a preserving solution. So it will not just be only salt or only sugar. They'll put a mix of things. Yes? Refrigeration is there as well. Very good. Freezing is there, refrigeration, wherein here the temperature goes really low, wherein the organisms will be inactive, right? Yes. So this was all about food preservation. Canning is a type of storing method that is there. Now, of course, last but not the least, we have a very important nitrogen cycle. Right, so now of course for those of you who want an in-depth understanding of nitrogen cycle, there is a small recorded video that is there in the channel. You can go check that out as well, right, wherein we've gone in detail as to every step of the nitrogen cycle. But broadly, when we talk about nitrogen cycle, we know that 78% of the atmosphere is filled with nitrogen. And we know that this atmospheric nitrogen is present in the unusable. So plants cannot utilize it, living organisms cannot be utilized it, right? So it is in the unusable form, which is why we see that there needs to be a conversion from this, from gaseous nitrogen into a usable form, or I would say a soluble form, right? And we see that this conversion is what we call as nitrogen fixation. Please write this definition down. So nitrogen fixation is nothing but the process wherein atmospheric gaseous nitrogen is converted into a simple soluble form, right? So now again, if you see, it can be converted physically using lightning or using biological nitrogen fixers, and we see that it gets converted into nitrogenous compounds, which will then be taken up by plants. And we know plants are producers, yes. So which means all the animals will directly or indirectly feed on it, right? And we see that they will eat it. Now eventually what happens, of course, is for all the other animals and plants, they eventually either excrete it out in the form of feces or urine, or they eventually, die, right? And all that nitrogen that is there will get decomposed and they go back into the soil. And in the soil, we have certain bacteria that will convert these nitrogen compounds back into gaseous nitrogen, and they will return it to the atmosphere. Right, so this is all about a quick nugget of nitrogen cycle. I hope that this was helpful for all of you. Is nitrogen cycle clear? Is there any refrigeration? It's with respect to temperature. Refrigeration, temperature and freezing. Freezing can go even lower. Can be below zero as well. Refrigeration is usually, I would say, between, I'm not sure of this, right? I'd say between 10 degrees to 16, right? What is ammonization? Ammonization is when gaseous nitrogen is converted into ammonia. Yes, everyone. So with this, we have come to the end of today's class. If you have any more doubts, right? Do humans need nitrogen in soluble form? So Harsimran, we consume nitrogen in the form of amino acids, right? So the proteins that we eat, that is our source of nitrogen. Yes? Quick reminder to fill the worksheet. You will have the link in the description and tagged in the comments, so don't forget. And of course, do be part of our Telegram community. We will be sending the PDFs there. And you know that your 6 to 8 channel has got you covered no matter what, right? So if you like this video and if you found this helpful, hit the like button, share it with your friends. Let me know in the comment section below if you need anything more, if you have any more doubts, and stay subscribed to our channel. And of course, Ankita ma'am is already here for our class. So hoping to see you very soon again, everyone. Bye-bye and have a nice day.